The sea, vast, endless, and unpredictable. For the ancient Greeks, its waves could bring life and prosperity or sudden death and destruction. At its heart ruled one god, Poseidon, wielder of the trident, master of the oceans, bringer of earthquakes, and breaker of kings. His realm was not confined to the shoreline. It stretched across the imagination of a people who lived and died by the tides. Poseidon was both protector and destroyer, a god whose moods mirrored the sea itself. Calm one moment, violent the next. His name was invoked by sailors setting out into unknown waters, by cities praying for safety, and by rulers who feared his wrath. But beyond the storms and the salt of the waves lies a mystery that has echoed for centuries: Atlantis, a city of wonder said to be raised by Poseidon's hand and drowned by his fury. Was it real, a warning, or a dream lost to the deep? This is the story of Poseidon, god of the sea, and the legend of Atlantis. Every god has a beginning. For Poseidon, it begins with a father who devoured his children. Cronus, ruler of the Titans, feared a prophecy that one of his offspring would overthrow him. To prevent this fate, he swallowed each child at birth: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon himself. Only Zeus escaped, hidden away by their mother Rhea. When Zeus grew strong enough to challenge Cronus, he forced him to regurgitate his siblings. From that moment, Poseidon stood once more beside his brothers and sisters, ready to claim his destiny. Together, they waged war in the Titanomachy, a cataclysmic battle between the younger Olympians and the ancient Titans. The clash shook heaven and earth, sea and sky. When victory came, the world was divided among the three brothers. By lot, Zeus claimed the heavens, Hades took the underworld, and Poseidon received the sea. Thus began his reign as Lord of the Oceans, a realm as vast and boundless as the sky itself. Yet Poseidon's domain was not simply water. He was known as the Earth-Shaker, the god who struck the ground with his trident, splitting cliffs and sending tremors through the land. In his power lay both the mystery of the sea and the terror of earthquakes, forces that reminded mortals of nature's unpredictability. To live under Poseidon's rule was to live at the mercy of untamed power. From the earliest myths, Poseidon was depicted as a figure of immense strength and volatile temperament. Unlike Zeus, who embodied law and order, Poseidon reflected raw elemental energy. Homer describes him in the Iliad as a god who strides across the waves, the ocean parting at his feet, the sea creatures rejoicing in his passage. His chariot, drawn by horses with golden manes, raced across the waters faster than the wind. His connection to horses revealed another aspect of his nature. Known as Poseidon Hippios, he was credited with creating the first horse, a gift of untamed beauty and freedom. This link between sea and steed puzzled and fascinated the Greeks. To them, both represented wild, unstoppable energy. Poseidon, master of both, was the embodiment of motion, strength, and unpredictability. But behind the myths lies meaning. For the Greeks, the sea was not merely a boundary, it was a lifeline. It brought trade, food, and connection to distant lands, yet also storms and shipwrecks. To give that power a face, a name, a god, was to make sense of life at the edge of chaos. Poseidon was not just a deity, he was the sea itself, in all its moods. And so, from the caves of Crete to the peaks of Olympus, Poseidon rose as more than Zeus's brother. He was a ruler in his own right, his trident a symbol of the balance between creation and destruction. His origins remind us that the gods of Greece were not flawless ideals, but forces of nature personified, powerful, dangerous, and essential. Through his birth, his battles, and his claim of the sea, Poseidon became a god whose story is inseparable from the world the Greeks knew best, the waters that surrounded them. To understand Poseidon is to understand the sea, vast, untamed, and ever-changing. When the Olympians divided the cosmos, Poseidon's lot was not a consolation prize but a kingdom that rivaled the heavens themselves. For the Greeks, surrounded by water and dependent on it for trade, travel, and survival, Poseidon's reign was as immediate and as intimate as Zeus's dominion of the sky. At the heart of his power was the trident, a weapon forged by the Cyclopes, shimmering with divine force. With a single strike, Poseidon could shatter rock, summon waves, or calm the waters. In art, the trident became his unmistakable symbol, 3 prongs representing mastery over the sea's depths, its surface, and the storms above. To hold the trident was to hold dominion over chaos. But Poseidon was not confined to the oceans alone. He was known as the Earthshaker. For earthquakes were believed to be caused by his restless strides beneath the ground. For coastal communities, the trembling earth and the roaring waves were 2 sides of the same terror. Poseidon embodied both, reminding mortals that stability was never guaranteed. Temples to Poseidon dotted the Greek world. At Cape Sounion, high above the Aegean, sailors offered sacrifices before setting out, praying for calm seas. In Corinth, worshippers invoked Poseidon as their protector of commerce and travel. Across inland sanctuaries, he was also honored as Poseidon Hippios, lord of horses. The Greeks believed that the same wild energy that stirred the ocean also coursed through galloping hooves. In chariot races, in cavalry battles, in every display of equestrian strength, Poseidon's name was present. Festivals celebrated his majesty. At the Isthmian Games, second only to the Olympics in prestige, athletes competed not for gold or politics, but to honor Poseidon. Victors carried wreaths of pine, a tree sacred to him, symbolizing endurance and vitality. Here, Poseidon's cultural weight was undeniable. He was not only a god of sailors, but a patron of unity through competition. In Homer's Odyssey, his presence looms large. When Odysseus blinds the Cyclops Polyphemus, Poseidon's son, the god's wrath becomes relentless. For years, storms and shipwrecks thwart Odysseus's journey home, reminding mortals that to anger Poseidon was to battle the sea itself. This tale became a timeless warning. To defy Poseidon was to invite disaster. Yet his power was not solely destructive. Sailors offered bulls and libations to Poseidon before voyages, believing he could calm storms and guide them safely. Fishermen prayed for abundant catches, farmers for fertile soil watered by the rains that rose from his seas. Poseidon was fickle, yes, but also generous when honored properly. This duality, protector and destroyer, made Poseidon indispensable. Unlike Zeus, who represented law, or Hades, who symbolized death, Poseidon was inseparable from daily survival. His moods dictated life along the coasts, and his name was invoked as often in gratitude as in fear. Visually, Poseidon's image became iconic, a bearded god, muscular and stern, holding the trident, often surrounded by dolphins, seahorses, or nereids. This imagery spread across pottery, temples, and coinage, embedding him into the everyday lives of the Greeks. To see Poseidon was to be reminded of the power of the sea, alluring, necessary, but never fully under human control. In the end, Poseidon's authority was not merely a matter of myth. It was a reflection of how the Greeks lived, at the mercy of the tides, dependent on the sea for survival, yet haunted by its dangers. The sea was their horizon, their lifeline, their threat, and Poseidon was all of it personified. If Zeus ruled through thunder and justice, Poseidon ruled through mood and passion. His myths reveal a god whose nature mirrored the sea itself, unpredictable, shifting between calm generosity and violent rage. To understand Poseidon, one must explore the stories that captured his wrath and his desires. Few tales illustrate his anger more vividly than the story of Odysseus. When the clever king of Ithaca blinded the Cyclops Polyphemus, son of Poseidon, he earned the sea god's eternal enmity. Each time Odysseus set sail, storms struck, His fleet was shattered, his journey prolonged for 10 long years. Poseidon did not kill him outright. He punished him with endless wandering, a torment as relentless as waves against rock. The message was clear. To harm Poseidon's blood was to provoke the endless wrath of the sea. His fury was not reserved for heroes alone. King Laomedon of Troy once promised Poseidon and Apollo rewards for building the city's mighty walls. When he refused to pay, Poseidon unleashed a sea monster upon Troy, a beast so fearsome it required Heracles to slay it. In this tale, Poseidon is both builder and destroyer, a reminder that his favor could elevate kingdoms, but his anger could just as easily drown them. But Poseidon's myths also reveal another side, desire. Like his brother Zeus, Poseidon pursued many lovers, both mortal and divine. From these unions came children who shaped Greek legend. With Aethra, he fathered Theseus, the hero who slew the Minotaur and unified Athens. With Amphitrite, the sea goddess, he bore Triton, a merman whose conch shell could calm or stir the waves. His passions, however, often carried shadows. The nymph Medusa, once beautiful, was pursued by Poseidon in Athena's temple. Enraged, Athena transformed her into the monstrous Gorgon. Here, Poseidon's desire sparked not triumph, but tragedy, giving rise to one of mythology's most feared creatures. Other offspring reflected his volatile spirit. Polyphemus, a cyclops blinded by Odysseus, was both brutal and vulnerable, crying for his father's vengeance. Pegasus, the winged horse, sprang from the blood of Medusa after Perseus beheaded her. In these myths, Poseidon's unions birthed beings of wonder and terror, miracles and monstrosities alike. The Greeks told these stories not only as entertainment, but as explanations of life's unpredictability. Storms could appear without warning, just as Poseidon's wrath could fall upon any who disrespected him. Love, too, was unpredictable, capable of producing beauty or disaster. Poseidon embodied these truths, reminding mortals that the forces shaping their lives were beyond control. Yet his myths also carried lessons about hubris. Mortals who claimed superiority over Poseidon often met ruin. In one tale, King Minos of Crete refused to sacrifice a bull that Poseidon had gifted him. In anger, the god cursed Minos's wife Pasiphae, leading to the birth of the Minotaur, a monster that became both curse and test for Crete. The story was not just about divine punishment, but about the dangers of pride and broken promises. In every myth of wrath or desire, Poseidon remained consistent in one sense. He was never indifferent. He was not a distant god watching from afar, but an active, volatile presence. His storms were personal. His passions had consequences. He was as close as the next wave and as unpredictable as the shifting tide. Through these myths, Poseidon became more than a ruler of seas. He was a force of nature personified, one who punished betrayal, pursued desire, and shaped the destiny of gods and mortals alike. To the Greeks, these stories were not contradictions, but truths. The sea could give, the sea could take, and Poseidon was the living embodiment of both. Among all the myths tied to Poseidon, none has stirred as much fascination as Atlantis, a city said to be more wondrous than any other, rich in gold and silver, radiant with temples, palaces, and gardens, and then in a single night, swallowed by the sea. Was this the gift of Poseidon or his curse? The legend comes to us through the words of Plato. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, he describes a vast island beyond the Pillars of Heracles, today known as the Strait of Gibraltar. Atlantis was said to be the domain of Poseidon, who had fallen in love with a mortal woman named Cleito. To honor her, he shaped the land itself. With his trident, he carved concentric rings of land and water, creating a city of perfect harmony. Canals, bridges, temples, and fertile fields. At its heart rose a great temple dedicated to Poseidon, its walls shimmering with precious metals. Atlantis was more than beauty. It was strength. Its fleet stretched across the seas, its armies unmatched in power. Atlantean kings, descendants of Poseidon and Plato, ruled with divine favor. In Plato's account, Atlantis grew into an empire, extending its influence over much of the Mediterranean. For a time, it seemed as though Atlantis embodied the balance of divine blessing and human ambition. But with power came arrogance. The Atlanteans, once virtuous and noble, grew greedy and corrupt. They sought to conquer not only neighboring lands, but the very spirit of justice. In their hubris, they turned away from the divine order Poseidon had established, and so the gods judged them. Here the story shifts from triumph to tragedy. In Plato's account, when Atlantis defied divine law, Zeus convened the gods to decide their fate. The punishment was swift. In a single night of earthquakes and floods, the city was consumed by the sea. The once great empire vanished, leaving only legend. Some say Poseidon himself struck Atlantis down, the creator turning destroyer, reclaiming what was his. To the Greeks, Atlantis was more than a lost city. It was a parable of hubris, a warning that even the mightiest civilization, blessed by the gods, could fall when pride outweighed virtue. And in this warning, Poseidon's duality shone clear. He was the giver of life, of prosperity, of cities beyond imagination, but also the taker, the one who could undo in a moment what took centuries to build. For centuries, philosophers and explorers have searched for Atlantis. Was it a real place, swallowed by shifting seas? Or was it Plato's allegory, a story meant to teach moral truth? To believers, Atlantis is a forgotten chapter of human history, proof of civilizations lost to time. To skeptics, it is a myth, yet one that endures because it touches something deeper, our fear of loss and our dream of perfection. In either case, Poseidon stands at its center. His trident both carved Atlantis into being and sent it into the depths. His story in Atlantis captures the essence of his power: creation, beauty, prosperity, destruction, and ruin, all bound together by the sea. Atlantis remains one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world. Real or imagined, it is a story that has endured for over 2 millennia, reshaped and retold by each generation. And in every telling, Poseidon's presence lingers, the god who gave a gift so magnificent that it became a curse. To the Greeks, Poseidon was not just a figure of myth. He was a living force, honored in temples, festivals, and prayers that reached from the Aegean Islands to the mountains of the mainland. His domain was everywhere water touched: the crashing waves of the sea, the springs bubbling in valleys, even the racing hooves of horses pounding the earth. In worship, Poseidon's presence was both practical and sacred, woven into the rhythm of daily life. Among his sanctuaries, none was more striking than the temple at Cape Sounion. Perched high above the cliffs overlooking the endless Aegean, it stood as a beacon for sailors. Before voyages, offerings were laid at his altar: bulls, rams, and libations poured into the sea. The winds at Sounion carried prayers for safe passage, for trade to prosper, for storms to calm. To this day, the ruins stand as a silent reminder of the reverence once given to the god of the sea. Poseidon was also honored through festivals. The Isthmian Games, held near Corinth, were celebrated every 2 years in his name. Athletes gathered from across Greece to compete in chariot races, wrestling, and foot races. Victors were crowned with wreaths of pine sacred to Poseidon. Like the Olympics for Zeus, the Isthmian Games placed Poseidon at the center of cultural unity. In competition, the Greeks found not only glory but also connection through their shared devotion. Yet Poseidon's worship extended beyond sailors and athletes. Farmers sought his blessing for rainfall, believing that the cycle of water from sea to cloud to soil was his gift. Horse breeders prayed to Poseidon Hippios, lord of horses, asking for strength and speed. Fishermen, casting nets into uncertain waters, whispered his name for abundance. In every corner of Greek life, Poseidon's power was acknowledged, his favor sought, his anger feared. The arts immortalized him: Sculptors carved statues of the sea god, bearded, muscular, commanding, trident in hand. Pottery painted scenes of Poseidon racing across waves in his chariot, dolphins leaping beside him. Coins bore his image, spreading his likeness far beyond temple walls. Each depiction carried not only beauty but meaning. Poseidon was present in commerce, in war, in travel, in the very currency of daily exchange. In literature, Poseidon thundered across the epics of Homer. In the Iliad, he sides with the Greeks, his trident shaking the earth as he battles alongside mortals. In the Odyssey, his wrath against Odysseus becomes a central force, shaping one of the most enduring tales in Western literature. To read Homer was to encounter Poseidon not as an abstract deity, but as an active participant in human destiny. Philosophers, too, reflected on Poseidon's role. To some, he represented the unpredictability of nature, the chaos that balanced Zeus's order. To others, he embodied the idea that power without restraint could be both creative and destructive. Poseidon's worship was therefore not only about safety at sea, but about acknowledging the deeper truth that life itself was uncertain, fragile, and at the mercy of forces beyond control. Even after the rise of Rome, Poseidon's image lived on as Neptune. The Romans absorbed his myths, building their own temples and offering sacrifices to ensure safe voyages. Neptune became part of Roman identity, and through them, Poseidon's legacy stretched across the Mediterranean and into the future. Today, the ruins of his sanctuaries still stand, battered by wind and sea but enduring. His likeness continues to inspire art, literature, and film. Sailors may no longer sacrifice bulls, but the awe of the ocean remains. Each storm, each crashing wave, carries the echo of Poseidon, the god who was worshipped not out of blind devotion, but out of respect for the power that shaped Greek life. In worship and in culture, Poseidon's legacy is not only that of a god, but of a reminder that the sea, like life itself, is beautiful, bountiful, dangerous, and always deserving of reverence. The waves that crash against the shores of Greece are the same waves that once carried the prayers of sailors to Poseidon. Though centuries have passed, his power has never truly faded. To reflect on Poseidon is to reflect on the sea itself, eternal, unpredictable, and vital to human life. In mythology, Poseidon was not a god of distant perfection. He was flawed, impulsive, often vengeful, yet also generous and creative. This complexity mirrored the ocean, calm one day, deadly the next. For the Greeks, Poseidon's contradictions made him real, relatable, and terrifying. He was the divine embodiment of nature's duality, teaching that the same force that nurtures life can also sweep it away without warning. The story of Atlantis embodies this truth. Whether allegory or history, it shows the dangers of arrogance and the fragility of human achievement before nature's power. Poseidon, as creator and destroyer of Atlantis, became a symbol of the delicate balance between human ambition and natural order. In this sense, his myth is timeless, as relevant in an age of rising seas and global uncertainty as it was in Plato's dialogues. Poseidon's legacy is also philosophical. To the Greeks, Zeus symbolized law and justice, Hades represented death and the afterlife, but Poseidon embodied the unknown. He was the reminder that not everything could be controlled. For philosophers, poets, and storytellers, this made him indispensable. A divine metaphor for the mysteries of life, for the unpredictability of fate. Across centuries, his image has endured. The Romans renamed him Neptune, god of the sea, carrying his worship into a new empire. Renaissance artists revived his form in sculptures and paintings, celebrating the human body through depictions of the sea god's muscular might. Writers and composers turned his stories into operas, poems, and allegories. And in modern times, Poseidon appears in novels, films, and even video games, a symbol of strength, fury, and the untamable ocean. Yet his true endurance lies deeper. Poseidon represents humanity's relationship with nature, awe, dependence, and fear. The Greeks knew that to defy the sea was folly, but to respect it was wisdom. Their worship of Poseidon was less about submission and more about acknowledgement that human life exists within a world of forces far greater than ourselves. Today, as we face climate change, rising tides, and natural disasters, Poseidon's myth resonates anew. The ocean still sustains and threatens us, offering food, trade, beauty, and destruction. In every hurricane, earthquake, and tsunami, the echo of the earthshaker remains. To remember Poseidon is to remember humility, that for all our progress, humanity is still bound to the rhythms of the natural world. In reflection, Poseidon is more than a god of the sea. He is a mirror of the human condition, our ambitions, our passions, our fears. He is the storm that challenges us, the calm that sustains us, the mystery that compels us to explore. His trident is not just a weapon, but a symbol of creation, destruction, and the power that lies beyond human control. And so Poseidon endures, not as a deity worshipped in temples, but as a timeless figure who embodies both the beauty and the danger of existence. His myths remind us that power is never simple, that nature is never fully tamed, and that humility before the forces of the world is the first step toward wisdom. The sea remains vast and unyielding, and with it the legacy of Poseidon, god of the deep, shaker of the earth, and eternal voice of the waters. From the birth of a god swallowed by his father to the roaring waves that shaped empires, the story of Poseidon is the story of the sea itself, beautiful, unpredictable, and merciless. He built kingdoms, destroyed cities, and carved into myth the greatest riddle of all, Atlantis. Though his temples may stand in ruins, the ocean still carries his voice. In every storm, in every tide, in every quake beneath the earth, Poseidon endures, not as a forgotten god, but as a timeless reminder of nature's power. Subscribe to Arcane Atlas Legends to journey further into the myths, gods, and mysteries that shape the ancient world, where legends still live.